I've just put up a piece about the online safety law, and I noticed the BBC has just posted a piece about that, the Online Safety Act, the OSA, and at its core, this law aims to protect internet users from illegal and harmful content, and on paper, its objectives, they say, appear commendable. I think, yes, I think to protect people is commendable, but the law itself is a mess. And it agrees that that on closer inspection, it exposes a raft of problems that make it more of a headline-grabbing initiative than a functional safeguard against online dangers. All it's going to do is attack a few website content creators or a few larger platform platform names like YouTube or Twitter. The BBC has heralded the introduction of the OSA's new enforcement powers, drawing attention particularly to a notorious website that's been hosting graphic images and videos of deaths, suicides, and executions. And bereaved families and campaigners have rightly condemned the existence of such platforms, and they've called for their immediate removal. But the hard truth remains: the law as it stands will not shut down this website or others like it. While Ofcom can impose heavy fines on platforms that fail to remove illegal content or lack adequate safety measures, the fundamental challenge remains jurisdiction. If the administrators of these websites operate outside the UK, especially in countries with lax or non-existent online content regulations, there's little Ofcom can do beyond issuing unenforceable fines or blocking access to the UK. Which can be bypassed with a VPN. Arresting UK-based individuals who contribute to such sites is possible, but that doesn't dismantle the platform itself. Under the OSA, tech companies must conduct risk assessments to determine how their platforms can be used to facilitate or disseminate illegal content, including terrorism, child exploitation, fraud, and incitement to suicide. The Act also mandates the presence of a senior executive responsible for compliance, aiming to establish accountability at the highest levels of tech firms. Companies failing to comply face penalties of up to £18 million or 10% of their global revenue. Ofcom, now the designated regulator, will begin reviewing compliance and taking enforcement action where necessary, and the emphasis will initially be on the larger platforms with significant UK user bases, but eventually all sites must adhere to the new regulations. The OSA also introduces age verification requirements to prevent children from accessing harmful content, and with this positive step, it raises questions about the practicalities of implementation and enforcement. Past efforts to introduce age restrictions for online content in the UK have failed because of privacy concerns, technical limitations, and the lack of cooperation from tech companies. Despite these measures, the OSA falls short of what campaigners seek. The BBC's report highlights the gruesome website that allows users to watch real-life killings, with some members going on to commit violent crimes. Ofcom can now require that such platforms demonstrate their ability to moderate content more effectively, but it cannot outright ban or remove websites hosted outside the UK. The anonymous nature of many of these sites further complicates enforcement. Tech companies might comply with Ofcom's demands to avoid fines, but bad actors will simply move their content to less regulated corners of the internet. And this has been seen time and time again with extremist content, dark web marketplaces, and illicit streaming services. A regulatory approach that stops at financial penalties does little to curb the problem, it merely displaces it. And critics argue that the OSA is simultaneously too weak and too invasive. It grants significant powers to Ofcom, potentially allowing overreach into legitimate areas of online discourse, yet it lacks the force necessary to remove the most harmful content hosted on offshore servers. Bereaved families want swift action, not bureaucratic red tape and unenforceable fines. Furthermore, the OSA leans heavily on platforms to police themselves. While some like Meta and Google may have the resources to implement these measures effectively, smaller companies and independent platforms will struggle. And this raises concerns about regulatory overburdening that could lead to uneven enforcement. There's no doubt that the UK government is under pressure to demonstrate it's taking online safety seriously, particularly after tragedies linked to harmful online content. But Legislation must be practical, enforceable, and effective, and fair. And the OSA as it stands offers little beyond heavy-handed financial penalties and a false sense of security. If the government truly wants to tackle extreme and illegal content, it must work with international partners to establish robust global frameworks rather than relying on domestic fines with limited reach. Until then, the law will be little more than a regulatory illusion, appearing strong in press releases but ineffective in practice. The Online Safety Act represents an attempt at tackling a real and serious issue, but it falls short of the necessary tools to do so effectively. Expect to see a few high-profile cases where individuals are dragged into the court and made to do public penance. But that's not actually going to protect your children and the vulnerable people in our society. That is just the illusion of control. And Ofcom's new enforcement powers may force compliance among the bigger tech companies, but they won't and they cannot shut down harmful websites operated beyond UK jurisdiction. Unless the government recognises these shortcomings and pursues meaningful international collaboration, the OSA will remain a well-intentioned but deeply flawed piece of legislation pursued by inadequate ministers, more about political posturing than genuine online safety.